What's up fellow hunters, Nox here, welcome to another exciting build video. Today we're going to talk about Endgame dual blades. We actually have 4 different elemental builds that you can choose from, and all of these can be used with any of the elemental dual blades. Aside from that, we also have a raw and status build. Before we get started, we have to take a quick look at the best weapon options for element. We have Kushala for ice, Narwa for thunder, Primordial Malzeno for dragon, Almadron for water, and Magmadron for fire. Water and fire need extra handicraft to reach purple sharpness, but that is already calculated into all of the builds, so nothing to worry about. I've also listed a few weapon alternatives below. Rampage decoration should be either LM Bane or one of the anti-species decos. With that out of the way, let's jump into the builds. We're gonna kick things off with the Divine Storm, a super comfortable high damage build for element that doesn't use any constant health draining skills. To get the essential skills, we need a talisman with either Dragon Conversion or Furious level 2 and 1 level 2 slot. That is actually nothing special anymore, and you will definitely be able to get something that works with the build. I'm using the Kushala dual blades as example here, but you can use this with any of the weapons we saw a moment ago. To increase our damage, we crank up the affinity as high as possible with Critical Eye, Weakness Exploit, and Bloodlust. Along with that, we of course have Critical Boost to get the most out of our critical hits. Since our main focus is elemental damage, we of course have a big stack of elemental skills, starting with level 5 of whatever element you choose. Then we have Element Exploit for a 10 to 15% increase to elemental damage on weak spots. Critical Element level 3 will add another 15% when landing critical hits. Depending on the weapon, we can also add Kushala or Teostra Blessing for an additional 10% increase to ice, water, or fire. Burst will add further element and raw attack as well when landing continuous hits. To give us even more element attack, we're also making use of the synergy between Dragon Conversion and Furious. Furious is really simple. As long as we're on the red scroll, it will give us 20 points to all resistances. And while on the blue scroll, Dragon Conversion will give us an additional plus 15 to all resistances after attacking the monster a certain number of times. Cool thing is, this resistance buff carries back over to the red scroll where the magic happens. Back on red, Dragon Conversion takes all resistance and counts it together. Then, the combined element resistance is transformed into element attack at a rate of 25%. This will give us another massive boost to element attack. And we also have defense boost. Aside from the obvious increase to defense, this will also give us additional increase to element resistance. The sweet spot is reaching level 6. At that point, we get plus 5 to all resistances, which in turn will increase element attack even further. With everything active, my element went from 107 all the way up to 266. That is incredible for a build that doesn't use any constant health draining skills. Next, we have one of the core skills of the build, Heaven Sent. At level 3, this has 2 massive benefits for dual blades. 1, we get infinite stamina, so we can dodge and attack as much as we like. And 2, we don't lose sharpness anymore, which is of course great for any weapon type that uses a lot of sharpness. In addition to that, we also still have the effect of Heaven Sent level 2, meaning that we can also restore 50 hits of sharpness by scroll swapping if we need to. Of course, an insane skill like this doesn't just come for free. In order to activate it, you have to not take damage for 15 seconds, and it will deactivate if you get knocked back. Good thing is, this is much easier than it sounds. We have 3 skills to make activating and keeping Heaven Sent as easy as possible. First, we have the combination of Wirebug Whisperer level 3 and Windmantle level 2. Together, these 2 will greatly increase Wirebug recovery speed. This will pretty much give us constant access to Silkbind moves, making it super easy to dodge attacks with the Shrouded Vault. And in case we do run into trouble, we also have Intrepid Heart, allowing us to take 1 hit without losing Heaven Sent whenever the gauge is filled. These 3 skills combined make it a lot easier to keep Heaven Sent active. The Wirebug Whisperer and Windmantle combo will also greatly increase DPS, since this will also let us use the amazing Spiral Slash move a lot more often. Aside from that, we have Frenzied Bloodlust and Coalescence level 1, giving us increased Wirebug usage and bonus damage. The build is also very flexible. For any weapon that needs handicraft to reach purple sharpness, we have a super easy adjustment. All you have to do is replace the Chain plus 4 with a Handicraft plus 4 decoration. And if you don't need handicraft, you can add anything else you might like. These are just examples. This build is a phenomenal choice for any high level quest. This is what my current augments are looking like with a Dragon Conversion level 2 talisman as example. Right underneath where it says augmentation status, you can see which augmenting method I used. On the legs, we have the final level of Dragon Conversion. The chest, arms and waist each have 1 level of Furious. And the helmet helmet only needs a slot upgrade. The wind mantle that came along with mine is just a nice bonus, but absolutely not required. Keep in mind that our main goal is 3 levels of Dragon Conversion and Furious, so depending on your talisman, the augments might look different. Next, we have 3 different Berserk builds to choose from that are all part of the endgame meta, starting with the easiest one to make, Ragnarök version 1. For this one, I'm using a critical boost level 3 talisman with 3 level 2 slots. 2 level 2 slots would already be enough though. You can easily get that with the Cyclops smelting now. I'm using the Kushala dual blades as example again, but you can of course use any of the weapons we saw at the start. This build has a maximum element potential of 293, which makes it about 10% stronger than the previous build. To increase our damage, the first thing we have is again a max affinity setup along with critical boost. This time the affinity comes from weakness exploit, strife, critical eye and bloodlust. All of the base elemental skills are intact as well. We have element attack, element exploit, critical element, Kushala blessing and burst. Next we have the star of the show and one of the best synergies in the entire game. Berserk, Strife and Mail of Hellfire. Let's start with Berserk. On the blue scroll, all health is turned red and will start draining. But as long as we stay on blue, monster attacks will not damage us. Instead, getting hit will increase the speed of the health drain. Swapping back to red will stop the health drain and convert half of the red health back to green. The great thing about Berserk is that it activates the maximum effect of Strife, which we have at level 3. This means we get a 20% increase to element, which is massive. And we also get infinite stamina, which is of course incredible for dual blades. This will allow us to attack and dodge non-stop. And then we have Mail of Hellfire as the third part of the synergy. At level 3, this will give us another 20% increase to element on the blue scroll. The skill does come with a big negative effect to element resistance, but since we're using Berserk and can't take any damage, this has no effect on us at all. Even if you had a negative 100 element resistance, it wouldn't matter. So the risk that comes with Berserk is definitely worth it. Cool thing is, the build comes with a perfect counter system to Berserk. Kushala Blessing level 3 combined with Recovery Up. This will give us a very good amount of natural health regeneration. We can also eat for the Super Recovery level 4 Dango skill if we like. This will give us another form of automatic health regeneration that stacks with Kushala Blessing. And we can boost the health regeneration effects even further by using an Immunizer or Gourmet Fish. On top of that, the build also comes with Blood Rite level 2. So along with the automatic health regeneration, we can also recover health by attacking. Here's a quick recap of the synergy. We get infinite stamina, which is incredible for dual blades. We don't take any damage from attacks, but instead have a health drain that is very well managed. And we get a massive 40% boost to element attack. Next we have Coalescence and Resentment. Both will activate automatically on this build and increase damage even further. For sharpness management, we're using Master's Touch. This will give us an 80% chance of not losing sharpness when landing critical hits. The build also comes with 3 extra levels of handicraft. This makes it super comfortable to maintain purple sharpness even if the weapon doesn't have any to begin with. Aside from all that, we have Intrepid Heart, Frenzied Bloodlust and Shock Absorber as bonus. Let's take a look at the augments. The helmet, chest and waist all have 1 level of Mail of Hellfire. The arms and legs are very simple and only have slot upgrades. Make sure to use the slot plus upgrading method for those 2 parts. Next is Ragnarök version 2. This is the supercharged Frostcraft version of the build. To get all the essential skills, we need a talisman with either 2 levels of Frostcraft or Mail of Hellfire and a level 2 slot. I'm using a Frostcraft level 3 talisman because I happen to have one. Since we only switched out the talisman, the skills are nearly the same as on the previous build. The only thing we're missing is 1 level of crit boost and burst, but Frostcraft more than makes up for that. Frostcraft will increase both raw and element damage by 5 to 30% depending on the charge level of the gauge. Even though the gauge decreases while attacking, this is a massive bonus to elemental damage. In order to recharge the Frostcraft gauge, we have to sheath our weapon for a couple of seconds. This playstyle does take a bit of getting used to. I highly recommend not sheathing immediately just because Frostcraft ran out. You will have to find the most beneficial moments to sheath your weapon and recharge the gauge. If you want to see absolutely crazy numbers with dual blades, this build is the way to go. The augments are the exact same as before since I only switched out the talisman. Keep in mind, if you're using a Mail of Hellfire talisman, you will of course have to go for Frostcraft augments instead. With a level 2 talisman of either Frostcraft or Mail of Hellfire, you can use the skill plus augmenting method on the arms or legs. That will make it easier to get the final level of either skill. Next, we have the True Berserker. This one is my personal favorite. It has incredibly high damage output while being super comfortable to use. To get all the essentials, we need a Berserk level 1 or level 2 talisman with one level 2 slot. This build has a maximum element potential of 312, which is insane. The only build that competes with this one in damage is Ragnarök version 2, aka the Frostcraft build. Just like the previous builds, we have a max affinity setup combined with critical boost. All of the base elemental skills are intact as well, with some of them even being at a higher level now. And of course, we're making use of the amazing synergy between Berserk, Strife and Mail of Hellfire again. Now we get to the big differences on this build, starting with Blood Awakening. Since we used this skill a lot in previous videos, I'm just gonna give a short summary to save you some time. Blood Awakening will increase raw attack and element when regenerating a certain amount of HP with attacks. At level 2, this will give us up to 20 raw attack and element. With our skill setup, this will be at full effect about 60 to 70% of the hunt depending on your playstyle. Elder Dragons are the exception because regenerating health with attacks becomes more difficult by default. To regenerate health with attacks, we have two options. We can make use of Blood Blight, which we get when fighting afflicted monsters. And we can use the Blood Right skill, which will give us health regeneration every time we attack a broken monster part. It is possible to make a version of this with Blood Awakening level 3 as well. Strictly speaking of numbers, that would of course make the build more powerful in theory, but it actually does not perform better than this build here. That is because the price of getting Blood Awakening level 3 is missing out on a few other skills, and those can actually result in an overall higher DPS. The other big difference about this build is that it comes with Wirebug Whisperer level 3 and Frenzied Bloodlust level 2, giving us incredible Wirebug uptime, which is great for both offense and avoiding attacks with the Shrouded Vault move. Aside from all that, we of course have Intrepid Heart for safety. And we also have room to fit in Powder Mantle for extra damage, or any other skill you might like to add instead. For the augments, we need to aim for 3 levels of Mail of Hellfire. Everything else is optional. A great tip is that you can use the skill plus augmenting method on the chest by sacrificing the ammo up. This will make things a lot easier in case you're struggling to get Mail of Hellfire. And you can also use the skill plus augmenting method on the legs by sacrificing some of the part breaker if you like. As I mentioned, the Powder Mantle and Frenzied Bloodlust are completely optional. You can get anything else you might like. For example, Wind Mantle would be another great choice here. Before we check out the build for raw damage and status, let's take a look at the best weapon options. We have the Umbrella Dual Blades for Paralysis, Scorned Magnamalo and Seething Basil for Blast, Chameleos for Poison, and Somnicanth for Sleep. All of these are great choices for the build we'll see in a moment. Under each weapon, you can see an exchangeable skill recommendation that has the most value for each option. But you can of course go for something entirely different if you want as well. Rampage Decoration should be one of the anti-species decos. The Showstopper, a comfy template for raw damage and status that is super easy to make. For this one, I'm using a status trigger level 3 talisman with 3 level 2 slots. I'm gonna demonstrate the build with Paralysis and also Blast Dual Blades, but you can of course use any of the 5 weapons we saw a moment ago. Like all the previous builds, we have a max affinity setup combined with critical boost. Then we have attack boost level 7 for a big increase to raw attack. Same thing goes for Mail of Hellfire, which we are now using on the red scroll. This will give us an additional 15 to 35 attack depending on the level. Then we have Build Up Boost. This will increase raw damage by 10, 15 or 20% if the attack applies status. Next is Status Trigger. After dodging a monster's move, every hit will now apply status 100% of the time for up to 12 seconds. That is of course incredible for status dual blades, allowing us to inflict status effects very quickly. And of course it also synergizes with Build Up Boost. To make Status Trigger super easy to activate, we have the combination of Evade Window level 3 and Embolden level 1. This will greatly increase dodging capabilities. With this setup, I was able to paralyze Risen Chagaru 6 times in 5.5 minutes on a multiplayer hunt. On the decoration list, you can see that some of the decos have a golden star. These indicate optional skills or decorations that you can switch out however you like. The skills I showed under the weapon options for the build are some of the best recommendations to use here. Just like the first build, we have Heaven Sent for infinite stamina and sharpness, as well as Wirebug Whisperer, Wind Mantle and Frenzied Bloodlust for greatly increased Wirebug usage. As a bonus, we have Intrepid Heart and Defiance for added comfort, along with Coalescence and Burst for extra damage. Using this build with Paralysis will turn you into an absolute lockdown god. You will be making any high-level investigations a whole lot easier for the entire team. there's not very much to say about the augments. The only thing I recommend is going for at least one level of build up boost and one level of Mail of Hellfire. After that, you can customize the build however you like. Here's a quick look at the switch skills I'm using. I actually have the exact same skills on both red and blue at the moment. Skill number 1 is Demon Flight. That one is just up to personal preference. Number 2 is the regular demon mode. As long as you have it activated, this will directly increase element and status. Number 3 is again just personal preference and can be whatever you like. Number 4 is Spiral Slash. I personally never take this out because it is the most powerful move the dual blades have access to. Number 5 is Shrouded Vault, which is a very good evasive maneuver. Iron Silk is also a great skill to have on one of the scrolls. I just didn't have any use for it at the moment. Make sure to check out the other builds for all kinds of weapons on the channel so you don't miss anything you might enjoy. Thanks for watching, take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.